This is Real Life with Deb Waterbury, a real show for real people with real issues. And now, here's your host, Dr. Deb Waterbury.
Welcome to this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I'm here with my good friend Dee.
Hi.
Hey, Dee.
I love being back with you.
I love it when you're here. So this is Dwight, and we are finishing up or continuing up. I think we're just doing 2 weeks on confrontation.
Because that's a lot of confrontation.
It is a lot of confrontation. So last week, Karen and I talked about how we receive confrontation. So when somebody comes to us and confronts us, how do we receive that in a godly way?
How'd you guys do with that?
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. So this week we want to talk about how we now confront people. Because because one of the things that we talked about last week that I think is really true is that confrontation has become this bad word. Like people telling you that you're a confrontational person and they mean that you're, wanting to argue all the time or whatever. And what I'd said last week was that confrontation is not bad. No. As a matter of fact, confrontation is godly. It's very biblical to confront. Right. The Bible very clearly tells us that we are, if a brother or sister offends us, that you go to them.
Right. Hold them accountable.
Yes, that's confronting. The problem comes in our natures, in our flesh man dealing with our spirit man, is that we tend to confront out of pride.
Ooh, there's already an internal confrontation going on right there.
That's true. So
my flesh, godly.
Exactly.
Ooh.
That's always happening. So what we have to deal with then is the fact that our confrontation is not ungodly,
right.
But it becomes ungodly when our sin takes over. Mm-hmm. And so our goal has to be, how can we then not allow that? What is it about the things that we can do in a practical way so that if I need to confront someone,
right,
I do so in a way that's godly and not sinful, right. And understand that's not easy.
No,
but it requires preparation
and practice. I was thinking, wow, we've had a week of practicing how to handle it. Now, right. Now we're gonna have to put it all together, right. And be like, this is how we do this.
Right, so. Right, and again, not easy, but it does. And confrontation, and like I said, I'm called a confrontational person all the time. And
you're just upfront.
I am upfront. I don't want things to simmer.
Right.
If something's wrong, I want to go to the person that it's wrong with, get it out on the table,
right.
Talk about it so that we can go back to being friends or go back to life. I don't, because I know that the enemy thrives in the dark.
So if we've experienced horrible results of simmering confrontation.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you've resolved that, or you've had to work through that. You don't want to experience those feelings.
Right, you don't.
So it's like, girl, I got a problem, and I just want you to know it could be me.
Yes.
Usually it's easy to start with my side, and then a lot of times that opens up
yes.
the window for, well, actually, now that you brought it to my attention, maybe it is my fault.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, honey, love
exactly.
you. Let's go have some coffee. Problem solved.
Exactly. And the thing, and what I had said last week with Karen, and I believe we're going to get into this as well today, is that when you speak to someone in kindness, mm-hmm. there's almost no way that person can speak to you in anything other that's unkind or that or unfair or bad feelings really
right.
do dissolve. And one of the things I said last week too that we have to be so ready to do is apologize for the fact that there is an issue. Because if there's an issue, whether you did the thing or not, you did cause that, even if it was inadvertent.
Right. Forgive me for my unforgiveness.
Right.
And they'll be like, for what?
Yes. And we have to realize, as I said last week as well, and I want to preface this week with this, these are heart issues. Oh. When someone has been offended by you or you're offended by someone, then this is a heart issue. Offense means your heart has been upset because you've had expectations not met.
That's the word.
Right. Or something has happened where it's a heart issue. So mm-hmm. if we will move into confrontation, understanding that you're dealing with someone's heart, and you're dealing with your heart and move at it from a heart place,
right.
as opposed to just, I'm right, you're wrong, or these are the facts. Mm-hmm. Realize you're talking to somebody who's got a heart, and that heart is not happy right now. Right. And deal with it in terms of that.
And it could not be because of the thing that you're even talking to them about.
Right, absolutely. And you're not ever going to know unless you talk about it. So confrontation, to move right back, confrontation is literally just talking about something. It means you are not going to hide it. You're not going to talk to yourself. You're not going to talk to your friends.
Definitely not to others first.
Yes. You are going to talk about whatever it is.
Right.
That is we want to confront the enemy, and we confront the enemy by confronting anything that's causing dissension. So a couple of scriptures that I felt like really can start our conversation on how to do this correctly is Proverbs 12:18. There is one who speaks rashly, like the thrusts of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. It's one of my favorite proverbs when it comes to speaking to someone if there's been a problem between you. Ephesians 4:29, let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear.
I love that, to the need of the moment.
Exactly.
That means if you're feeling a little angry, that's not the moment to do the confrontation. One thing,
very good. Yes.
And one of the things is, like, a lot of people think of confrontation as almost like anger. So
yes.
Anger management or confrontation, like how to solve a conflict. They're not all going to be solved.
No, they're not.
But it's how we handle it.
Yes, as we said last week, and I'll say over and over again, my responsibility will always be my response. Period. That's always going to be my responsibility. No matter what is happening right here, my response to what's happening will always be my responsibility.
That's why I usually need a moment.
Yes, which is why we should never do this when we're angry.
Never, ever.
Should you ever go to someone and speak to them when they're angry? Because biblically it says you're going to probably say something unwholesome. And we talked about a lot of Proverbs last week about speaking in anger, and we know not to do that. So honestly, I think there's one thing about going to people. Like if I had a problem or something happened.
Just use me as an example.
Let's say you had done something, said something, whatever, that I needed to speak with you about to clear the air. A lot of people are afraid to do that. Why do you think that is?
I don't want to hurt your feelings. People are always worried about hurting somebody else, which is almost the basis of like a forgiveness or a confrontation. Is I'm so worried about hurting you that I'm leaving myself walking around hurt.
Right.
So it's really like a vicious circle that I'm pretty sure the enemy is so proud that he started.
Yes.
But I'm always worried that I'm going to hurt your feelings or I'm going to offend you. Or maybe, especially in these days and times, and we've been talking about this over the months, of I don't want to lose that friend.
Right.
Because that's one less friend I have.
Right.
So it really is about hurting people,
yes.
I think.
And I think also about being worried that someone's going to hurt you.
Right. Oh my gosh, what if they respond?
Right, and come back at me.
Especially, I've had time to not be in that moment.
Maybe they're not.
And exactly. And
this is a good point.
I approach them. I've had a day, a week, a month to simmer or pray or ask the Lord for how do I handle this. I go to you. That's your moment.
Right. That is such a good point, Dee. We have to be willing to offer grace right then. Because goodness gracious, what a great point. We've been wise enough, because we're doing the confronting. Last week we talked about when someone confronts us. Now right then you have to deal with, and I think Karen said last week, it's okay to say, may I have some time?
There you go.
I need to have some time to pray about that. Now
Absolutely.
That's how we would receive confrontation. But we have to understand that if we go to someone, they haven't had that. So we've got to be willing to allow for the anger, allow for the surprise, allow for maybe the knee-jerk reaction, and allow them, they may need some more time. Just because you're ready doesn't mean they're not ready. You've taken the time, so that is a great, great point when it comes to confronting someone.
I wish I could remember that.
I know. And it's really bad for us when we're as married people, because when my husband has messed with me, and I go to confront him, and I try very hard not to do it when I'm angry.
In the moment.
And so I will pray, I'll get past the anger, and then I'll sit down and say, I need to speak with you about something.
Oh, poor man.
I know. And I'm ready, because I've prayed through it, and
You're prepared.
I've got my scriptures, honestly, I'm ready to speak with my husband. He doesn't know where I'm coming from, because bless his heart, he doesn't think the way I do anyway. So no matter what he thinks I'm going to talk about, it's never what he thinks it is.
Because it's probably been a month.
Exactly, or 2 years ago. But
even if it was yesterday.
Exactly.
Those boys are like, honey, why didn't you say something then?
Right. He has no idea what it is. And so what I often do, though, is I want resolution right then. I need him to hear me, process it in the moment, and then resolve with me. That is, and we as women, if you want to be honest, we're all like this. And when our man says, I need some time, or he wants to go in his cave, or he needs to go in another room.
You're not listening to me.
We're not willing to give him that time.
And that's interesting, because that's people that we know and that we're with all the time.
Yes.
Yet that should almost be the easiest. And most of the time, our confrontation or our conflict is with other people that they deserve that time.
Yes, right. And
they don't know us. They don't know what our knee-jerk reaction is going to be.
Exactly. And so, ladies, I'm really talking to you right now in terms of your nature. I know I'm the same way. We need to give our husbands the time they need to process through what we just said, because we've taken the time, we've been all godly, we've done all we need to do, we've been all praying, getting ourselves all prayed up, and then we hit them with it. We don't want to give them the same time.
Grace.
That's not fair. So honestly, when they want to go away and think about it, give them that time. You took it. They deserve it as well. And it doesn't mean they're not listening, doesn't mean they don't want to be with you, doesn't mean they don't want to resolve. It just means they need to have the same amount of time to go back and prepare whatever going on, because their response might be knee-jerk anger.
Right.
And they don't want to do that either. And we don't want them to do that, because all it is, again, that's the enemy, and that cycle of here we go, we're going to love this. So he knows we're never going to get through the anger.
So you don't need to say anything now, honey. They may be shocked by that. They may think it's a setup.
Most likely will.
Trust me, whatever you need to do right now with this.
Mm-hmm. We can talk about it when you're ready.
That's
but
practice.
I just need to let you know this is what I'm upset about, and then allow them the time that they need to, if they may not. Because they might be like, this is just not a big deal, but you need to allow them that. And I think that's just really that's all free. That wasn't even in my notes.
I know, we've just spent half the time on it.
Exactly, but that's such a good point.
That's how God works.
So the opposite then of confrontation is, in my opinion, is to gossip, which we want to do that sometimes. We don't see it as gossip. What we see it as is, I want to make sure I'm right. I need to be sure.
Okay, that's even worse than gossip.
It is. But we want to make sure that our points are valid, and we can even justify it and say, I need someone to pray with me. I need to make sure you know what's happening. But what we really want is validation that we're right.
Someone to co-sign my insecurities.
That's
or
exactly
my whatever.
Right. Yes. So there's absolutely, not unless you're going to a pastor or somebody that you're trying to make sure you're not in sin.
In confidence.
Yes. That's different. But going to your friends or whatever, before you go to the person you need to confront, especially if it's your husband, you should never be maligning your husband to other people. Period. Never do that. But you should certainly allow him and give him the opportunity to respond by going to him first.
Yeah.
And you were right just a minute ago. We often tend to give to others more than what we'll give to our own spouses.
Right.
And that's anti-biblical, and it's not even what the Bible says we should do.
It just makes the problem even worse.
It
because
does.
Heaven forbid, by the time you actually have gossiped and said all of that stuff, by the time you get to them, they've heard that too.
Yes, exactly.
So pretty much anything that comes out of your mouth, now they've had their moment.
Absolutely.
And you are probably not going to get back what could have been solved in love or kind words or...
because you've created another problem.
Exactly.
You've created another issue. So in order to prepare to confront someone, Dee, what do you think we should do? What's the first or even a few things you think we should do in preparation for confronting a person?
It's funny because I had written on my notes, 1, 2, all. Prayer and start positive. I think about, I am very open with sharing about my recovery and about my side of the street. So when I'm preparing to confront someone, I pray, God, show me where I am wrong. Mm-hmm. Or God, show me why this is upsetting me so much. Right. So, and a lot of times, the confrontation never has to happen.
Amen.
Because my Heavenly Father loves me so much that He says, honey, it was your fault.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So then maybe I may have to just go and forget and ask for forgiveness.
Right.
Or use that in a future, any kind of future conversations or communication with them.
Very good. Yes.
So there's just...
I think that you hit the nail on the head. It is go to your Father and ask Him to reveal to you what's really happening.
Right.
Because if you're feeling anger, upset, offense,
unmet expectations.
yes, then the enemy has already gone in there and messed with you, because those are his favorite things.
Hello, so easy.
Yes.
Stir.
Yes. So you know that you're already being messed with. So go to the Father and say, doesn't mean the person wasn't wrong. Doesn't
Right.
mean that the offense wasn't real.
Right.
But what you now have is you've got this offense mixed up with your own heart and your own unmet expectations and all that stuff. And that's where the enemy loves to stir the pot. So going to the Father first and praying that he will show you what's real, so that when and if that must occur after you've gotten that from him, it is done from a very healthy perspective.
Exactly.
And it's done from a place of love and a place of self-introspection, where you recognize your own fault and where you recognize what your part in this was. And so that you can, in a positive attitude, in a loving attitude, with a brother or sister, whether that brother's your husband or not,
Right.
that you go to them with a godly attitude. You
Yes.
can't. You're not going to do that naturally.
Right.
Our flesh man will always want to deal with flesh, but we have to move in the spirit man, which is not something we do naturally. So only preparing ourselves by going to God first.
And it's neat too, because you say about like once we're prepared, then there's no way that I'm going to be able to go to them negative or
No.
mean, and so it's gonna. I love you as a friend, so I don't want to lose you, and I need to tell you what's going on with me.
Right.
I'm not going to say you did this and you did this and you did
Right.
this. I have been hurt by, and so I feel like it. Just talk positive first.
Yes.
Lay out on the table why it matters.
Yes.
Because truthfully, if it's not somebody that you care about, they're going to want to know, are you just trying to show off and say how good you are and how bad?
And how bad I am.
Exactly.
Right.
So it depends on the situation.
It really does.
How much does it really matter is going to affect how much you really put into this.
Right,
I
right.
use a silly example with my students where you see somebody steal something, you know, and how you give that person the opportunity, hey, I don't think you should have done that. And I feel bad because now I saw it and you've put me in an awkward position. And so it was really cute to hear how people want to solve that problem. They're like,
Right.
oh, I'm going to snitch. And I'm like, well, we're not going to use that word. we're going to tell on somebody. No, we don't want to use that word. We want to keep that person from feeling guilty.
Right.
We want to keep that person from feeling shame. So maybe that other person knows I hurt her and I don't even, and what do people do when they hurt you? Sometimes they ignore you.
Exactly. 'cause
I
they don't
miss
know
you.
what to
Where have you been?
Right, exactly.
That's
And
how
that
you
is-
start positive.
It
I
is.
miss you.
And again, it is so much of understanding you're dealing with a heart here.
Yeah.
This is all heart issues. So if you'll go at it from an aspect of, okay, this is someone's heart I'm dealing with, then you will almost always, if you've bathed it in prayer, you'll go at it with a much more tender approach, which confounds all of the enemy's
Yep.
plans. Confronting people is a natural part of relationship with people. We're not going to always love everything that everybody does, and everybody's not going to love everything that we do. So in order not to harbor bitterness and harbor all those things, obviously one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we are prayed up.
Yep.
We have a relationship with our Father that we should have, and enter every one of those situations understanding this is a heart issue, and I'm going to deal with this from a heart perspective.
Right.
You can only do that from God. So we're going to continue to pray for you as you deal in your relationships. This is a big deal. This is obviously where the enemy loves to mess with us, because if he causes dissension in the body, then nobody wants to be a part of that body.
Yes.
So don't be the problem. Don't be the problem. Be a part of the solution.
Yes.
Love you guys. Can't wait to talk to you next week. See you later.
Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it was to me. You know, if you want any of my books or information on articles or any of my speaking engagements, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com. God bless you.